Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Thanks for tuning in for another episode. Today I want to talk about a big misconception in the fishing world when it comes to colors. There are some colors out there that we find to be truly unique across the board in that they are super bright or match a hatch that's only in a very particular region of the country. And one mistake I see a lot of times is when people assume a color will not work when they don't live in a region that has, say, a particular bait fish. So, specifically, one thing I hear all the time and a question I get all of the time from viewers out here is, well, we don't have shad in the upper Midwest. Once you hit, like Wisconsin, Minnesota, you've got shad in a very few select places. So, most of the natural lakes, most of the reservoirs we have don't have shad. So, I get the question all the time, should I be throwing a shad based color? And the reality is, even though we don't have shad, most shad colors mimic the forage species that are in that lake. Whether it's still bluegill or perch, they still a lot of times have some shine to them, and you're gonna catch fish on baits that don't necessarily match the hatch. So I want to talk about one color that kind of fits into this category. I think most of the country has shad or some of those more pelagic style minnows that have that silver base to them. So even though we don't have shad in most of the lakes in Wisconsin or Minnesota or say, upstate New York, we do have smelt, we do have alewife, we have Cisco, and they all are kind of shad like they're herring based fish. So they've got a very similar color to them. But one thing I hear all the time is about how northern anglers love to throw a perch colored bait. This is one of my favorites. This is the Money Badger by Berkeley. They nailed the perch color. It's a little bit of a translucent bait, but it's just got that perfect yellow perch look to it. Uh, and the reality here is I get comments all of the time kind of in the reverse. People down south are like, well, we don't have yellow perch, or we have yellow perch, but there's so few they're not a main forage species. So why would I throw yellow perch? Well, I can assure you guys that yellow perch is a phenomenal color to be throwing down south just as much as it is up north. And there's a couple of reasons for that. And the first and most simple, basic similarity I'm going to make here to the perch color is you can't sit here and tell me perch won't catch fish on a hard bait when the number one colored plastic that most anglers are throwing is either watermelon or green pumpkin, a very similar version to what perch looks like. In fact, a lot of them are going as far as dipping the tails of their baits in chartreuse or orange dye, which only matches perch even better. They don't have a perch in their lake, but still they're pounding fish on a watermelon or green pumpkin colored bait. So what we know right off the bat is that a greenish hue or a greenish base to a bait is a very natural color. So even though you don't have perch, it's still going to match in with a bunch of the forage. Whether you're talking about crayfish, a lot of crayfish look like this. In fact, you think back to potentially the most famous crayfish colored bait is the old wigglewort phantom craw color. It's pretty similar to this in reality. If you think about a lot of lakes have bluegill. Well, bluegill, a lot of them are greenish based fish. So even though you don't have perch, doesn't mean that the bluegill color is not going to work. Some of my favorite colored jerk baits down south, again, are going to be perch. These are Megabass Vision 110 plus ones, two different perch colors that they have. They are extremely accurate in terms of matching the hatch. And I'll tell you one tip with the perch color, and this works really well on lakes down south that have a lot of vegetation. If you've got vegetation, a majority of the bait fish and the creatures that are in and around that vegetation will actually take on that greenish colored hue to blend in with the surrounding. It's just something that naturally happens. It's if you're fishing for largemouth and you catch largemouth out of grass, generally speaking, they're a much darker color. If you catch them out off of an offshore ledge in 20 feet of water, generally they're a much lighter color. It's the fish are trying to match in with the surroundings. So if you have aquatic vegetation, you got your hydrilla, you got your milfoil, coontail, eelgrass, all of the fish that are using that, not just bass. I'm talking your bait fish. So your bluegill, your even your shad a lot of times will take on a greenish colored hue to it. So, you've got right off the bat, you've got a bait that's a very natural looking bait that blends in well with a lot of the surroundings and we know is a proven color. So just because you don't have perch doesn't mean you can't be using the perch color. In fact, I would sit here and argue that it is potentially the most underused color in all of fishing because there's such a small subset of anglers that use perch because most of them consider it just a northern color, meaning, lakes that have your smallmouth and largemouth that are, just north, right? So the fact is here, guys, I'm telling you, you're missing out if you're not throwing it. And it's also a great color to use on your sunny, bright days. So the days where those shad patterns that are producing a lot of flash may be over the top because they're too flashy. That's when picking up a greenish hued crankbait, in my experience, has been a very good move to make. In fact, I'll even go as far as saying my number one crankbait on the Tennessee Valley lakes, so your Kentucky Lake, Chickamauga, Pickwick, is a crankbait that is very, very similar to this one right here in terms of a color. You take away the green bars and it's pretty much the same color. It's a dark green top with a goldish sides on it. And it seems to work really, really well on the Tennessee Valley lakes. And there are very few perch in that system. You may catch one here, you may catch one there, but generally speaking, it's not a main forage for the largemouth that I'm chasing, but still yet I'm being very productive. So, a couple of my favorites, like I said, I think Berkeley's got the perch color absolutely hammered. Megabass has a whole pile of different versions that makes a great one. One of my favorite perch variations is one you can't buy on the shelves right now, but is a bait that you can find at a lot of garage sales. It's the old Rapala perch color. So they still make a good perch color right now, but their old one has like a dark gold bronze color for the belly with a really dark sides. It's an awesome bait. If you can find them at a garage sale, I'd say go ahead and pick them up. Usually they don't sell for that much more than what they would cost off the shelves. But those are some good ones, guys. Go get yourself some perch colored baits, your jerk baits, your crank baits. We use the color already with your jigs, with all your plastics. Why wouldn't we throw it with our hard baits? Your lipless baits work just as good with it. I mean, it's just funny to me how when you think about plastics or you think about baits with skirts, green is such a common color. When you talk about your hard baits, all of a sudden it's like green disappears unless you live on a lake that has a lot of perch. People just don't buy it as much, but you're making a mistake. So buy yourself one. Do me a favor and get yourself a perch colored crankbait or jerkbait. Give it a couple hours and then come back and let me know what you think. Because if you haven't thrown perch yet, I truly think you're making a big mistake. Anyways, guys, thanks for watching. I appreciate all of you. If you enjoyed this video, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already, and stay tuned. We'll have a new video for you tomorrow.